Hello and welcome back to the ROI channel, the channel that's obsessed with the art and science of return on investment. We have a Maverick segment today. I'm chatting with Michael Coe from Apartments BA, BuySell BA, a fantastic Twitter account. You guys have to follow him. Links will be in the description. Today, we're going to cover Michael's journey. It's a truly fascinating story with nuggets of gold along the way. We're going to talk about what he's up to now and specifically how he sees the real estate market in Buenos Aires and Argentina, because he is an original gangster when it comes to the real estate scene in Argentina. Michael, it is a pleasure to have you on the channel. Thank you so much for joining me. Let's dive straight in. You have a love affair with Buenos Aires. If you can give me a 2-minute synopsis of how you ended up in Argentina, subletting apartments, turning it into a business, and have seen so many changes from the Corralito in 2001 all the way through to today. My brother, tell us the story.
Yeah, it's great being on here, Benjamin. Yeah, so my love story with Buenos Aires, I was down there during the Corralito, and right when it crashed, so it went from being one of the cheapest cities or the most expensive cities in the world to the cheapest major city in the world overnight. And I fell in love with the city. I was going down 1 week out of every month, and I noticed this arbitrage opportunity. I was staying in the Four Seasons or the LVR Palace or these expensive hotels. I noticed everything got cheap overnight except for a five-star hotel room. Corralito, became the cheapest city in the world overnight. And I fell in love with the city. I was going down 1 week out of every month. And, I noticed this arbitrage opportunity where everything got cheap except for a five-star hotel room. I was staying in the LVR Palace or the Four Seasons. I was spending like $2,500 a week. And I just got tired of staying in a, small place. And so I decided to rent out my own place. I went out with realtors and looked, and everyone was desperate because they had their money trapped in the bank. And I found this empty apartment around the Four Seasons, near the Four Seasons. And, it wasn't cheaper than a suite at the Four Seasons. It was about, I think $25,000 for 2 years up front. But at the lease signing, I noticed it said no subletting. And, I told them, well, I want to be able to sublet. I wasn't thinking about a business, but I thought, this is crazy. I'm only using it 1 week out of the month. And so, the guy gave in, and that was kind of the start. I made a website called apartmentsba.com with that one property. And, it just got very, very, very busy. I had 100% occupancy.
Wow.
Google AdWords was just starting out. I was paying 5 cents per click for apartment rental Buenos Aires. And that was kind of the genesis. I originally did it to help out a girl that I had met, and she lost her job during the Corralito. And, I think I was charging maybe $200 a night. And I went from just covering my costs to making money. We had 100% occupancy. Even if there was 2 nights between bookings, people would go to the Four Seasons and just, stay in our properties. And so I went out and I subletted 3 more apartments, and I kind of learned about the business. I thought someday I'm going to make a real estate company here and rent out properties. The ROI was huge on it. And I just started looking for properties to buy, and it was this horrible experience. The realtors are really horrible. They still are. And, I built up that business, putting together a business plan, just kind of finding out, how do I buy? How do I move money in? What do I need to do? And that was the start of it. One day I was sitting in my office in Dallas, and I just thought, this is the time to do it. Real estate prices had fallen about 65%. And so I even missed out on the really cheap prices. I didn't buy, I think, my first one until the end of 2002. So I waited a year after the Corralito kind of to see how things would stabilize. But then I decided to kind of make 3 life-changing decisions at once. I sold my house, I quit my job where I was a partner, and moved to a foreign country. Any one of those things normally is a life-changing decision. I decided to make all of those at the same time. And so I sold my house, I cashed in my 401k, I came down to Buenos Aires, and I, had enough money to buy a couple properties. So I bought a couple properties, but you can't leverage, you can't leverage. That's all cash down here. And so I just set up a consulting investment company helping foreigners basically do everything for them, set up their tax ID number, bring their money legally into Argentina, take a power of attorney, and buy the property for them.
Okay,
And
so
so we
let's touch on that. So your services at the moment, what do they include? Are you a buyer's agent essentially for
went,
foreigners?
no, we're not a buyer's agency. I think of us as kind of a consultant,
Okay,
except we transact for them.
I see.
Probably 85% of our clients, they don't come down to Buenos Aires and do the whole process themselves.
Okay,
They might be down for a week, or they might not come down at all. It might just be an investment for them. So we refer them to a realtor. We're not realtors. We work with several ethical and reputable English-speaking realtors in Buenos Aires. So we'll refer them to a realtor. We'll refer them to ethical lawyers, and we do everything for them. We help transact. So they hire us. We charge $5,000 or 2%, which a minimum of $5,000. If it's over a certain amount, we charge 2% of the purchase price,
yeah.
and we completely transact for them. So we get their tax ID number, their CDI number. We take a power of attorney, and we essentially close for them, because when you close it, you have to be there in person. So for a lot of people, just the cost for time off from work and flying to Buenos Aires and staying in hotels,
Exactly.
they're going to spend more than that, and you have to come down at least 2 times. So we basically do all of that for them. And
Great. So
so
you take all the frustration, the pain points, and the uncertainty out of, let's say, a foreign buyer like me. I want to buy something. I don't know who to use. There are so many horror stories of people that get cheated by local realtors. I might
right.
not be able to make it down there personally necessarily. So I hire you and your consulting team, and for that service, then you take the power of attorney, and from start to finish, it's a one-stop shop, and I
It's a
love
one-stop shop. Exactly.
great.
We not only close for them, because think of it, it's still a lot of these closings are cash. When I say cash, you're literally have hundreds of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars on the table. And so, most people, they don't trust the locals. So this is the same kind of business I did when I started Apartments BA, 22 years ago. Is we have a good track record and the name behind it. And so yeah, so people hire us. You can hire us to furnish it or renovate. We people have hired us to build custom homes,
Okay.
and so we've done that as well with architects that we work with. And so we kind of go full circle from that, and then also onto property management, managing the properties. So
Fantastic. So let's touch on the property management. Are because that's the biggest thing for a foreign buyer or a foreign investor. They like the idea, they get the thesis, but it's
right.
taking care of all the operational aspects in the day to day, when obviously they're going to be in a completely different geographic location. So you guys organize at the management of the properties. And is that for long-term rentals only? Do you touch on the short-term rental market, or do you refer out
We
to
do
others?
both. When I had Apartments BA, I started with that one property, to over 500 properties. So it was a big operation. People don't realize we were kind of the start. We were the ones that all the Airbnbs you see in Buenos Aires today, we were the start of all of that 22 years ago. And it's hard to trust local companies. We work like a kind of like a Fortune 500 company, where you ask something, you get instant response. Now it's a lot easier, I would say, to manage a property remotely, because you can do things like smart door, but smart locks on the door. Where you as the owner can see exactly when someone's going in and out. But you couldn't do that 20 years ago when I started Apartments BA. Now you can put Ring doorbell cameras. So as the owner, no one can ever say, well, you're not, you know, you didn't rent the property, when you can see you have full transparency in that. So I would recommend that for any owner anyway, to take advantage of technology. The biggest problems that we faced 20 years ago and even today is, if you get an unethical property manager, they could be renting it out and just keeping the money, or they could be living in it. we we had a lot of cases when I had Apartments BA where foreigners, they called us and they wanted us to manage their properties because they caught the property manager living in them. And so you see it all there. You see it all there. You see it all down in Buenos Aires. But I would say now it's a lot easier with technology. We're the same now as back then. We wouldn't manage your property unless you hired us to buy it. And so we probably could have managed thousands of properties then, but we didn't want to. What I noticed is in the early years when I was desperate to get properties, I started working with some locals that had bought properties, but they were just a pain in the ass. Like the electricity would go out or the internet would go out or there'd be a plumbing leak and they wouldn't give back the money. And we have two sets of clients. We have the rental client and we have the property owner. And we have to be fair to both of those people. And what I noticed was with the locals, they have no concept of repeat business and being fair. They just want to make the most they can. And so in the beginning, I just said, enough. I'm not going to work with anyone unless they hired us to buy the property. And that way I have a working relationship. I know they're going to do the fair thing. And that's what we do today too. We don't take on any properties for management unless someone hired us, to go through the buying process and help them.
I think it's a smart move, and then you have more selective control from the
That's it.
process and start to finish, and can build that residual business or residual relationship over time. Argentina's been in the news recently, mainly since the World Cup, but more importantly, from an economic perspective, due to the changing government. I would like to get your take on how you see the local economy right now, and in particular with regards to real estate prices. I keep an eye and I see the prices creeping up. I'd be interested to
Yeah.
get your take and how you see the market in terms of attraction for investors in general.
Sure. Yeah, that's a good question. We mostly got out of the market. So all of these hundreds of properties that we bought, probably 95% of these properties we exited out from 2017 to 2019. So during those periods, I just saw real estate prices had skyrocketed. In large part because Macri did an amnesty. Macri did an amnesty. Billions of dollars came into Argentina, and a lot of that money went into real estate. And so, I was selling studio apartments in Palermo, Soho, 35 square meter for $200,000 in those years. It was crazy. And we got out at a good time, and I've just kind of been watching it fall for the last 5 or 6 years. And finally, I was in Buenos Aires in the summer with my family, and I just thought, this is crazy. Property prices had fallen so low. It was unbelievable. I just thought, no matter who's president, it doesn't matter. Real estate fundamentally in good areas, it's gonna recover. Even on a long-term rental, now you can get close to 5% yields on a long-term lease, right? Not buying any furniture. And so that's kind of the start of how I restarted operations there. Is 6 years watching the property prices go down. We started buying last year. I started, our X account. I set up BuySell BA, and I just said, this is the bottom. This is the time to buy, and we nailed it. This is before President Milei started, and that, looking at a year's worth of data, that's exactly what happened. Publicly, I said there's going to be an amnesty if Milei gets elected. There's going to be an amnesty. Billions of dollars are going to come in. And when that amnesty happens, locals, they're not entrepreneurs. They don't start businesses or startups. Most of them don't invest in the stock market. A lot of these people, the best and safest investment for them is real estate. And so my hypothesis was, just like, the last amnesty, after these billions of dollars come back in Argentina, within 2 years, a lot of that's going to go into real estate. And I said mortgages were going to come back into play, which is happening. And so we kind of have the perfect storm for capital appreciation. I told my clients last year, we're probably going to see 100% appreciation in the next 6 years. A lot of our clients in the last year, we've gotten 20% of it back in 1 year, and a lot of a lot of parts of Recoleta and Palermo, you've had 15 or 20%, depending on when you got in last year, appreciation. And so that should continue. Mortgages are becoming more into play. They went from nothing to now about 20% of the market right now is mortgages. And you have that amnesty. So we had $21 billion in change come back into the banking system, deposited in the banks. And what we're seeing now is what I predicted. You're seeing every day, you're seeing people withdraw that money, right? We're up to 3 billion now. And that it doesn't stay under their mattress. A lot of those people, they're buying right now. They're buying either apartments that are done or especially Pozo, new construction, where those numbers aren't on the books anywhere yet until after you close. So a lot of that money is going into new construction. And then, Benjamin, you have to account from last year to this year, property prices, the cost of construction's gone up about 100%. And so they can't price that right away, but that's going to get priced into the sales prices over the next year. And so there's going to be a lot of capital appreciation.
Absolutely. And in terms of the new construction versus existing dwellings, do you have, or do your investors have preferences for either of those?
Yeah, new construction is always the most expensive property in Buenos Aires. If you look at property prices, people like new constructions, even if they're not in buildings with a lot of amenities like pools and gyms and doormen and saunas. People know that new construction, you're not going to typically have any problems. Whereas the older stuff, you never know. It's actually solidly built. The old stuff is actually built much better, I think, than a lot of the new construction. But eventually, gas lines, electrical lines, plumbing lines, they can need to be replaced, and that can be a hassle. And so new construction is very, very in demand in the most expensive properties. But we have a lot of clients that like piaces. Piaces are like townhouses. They share common, and they're great because there's no expenses. The new construction, the downside of that, there's been a lot of inflation this year, and those HOA, those homeowners association fees have skyrocketed. They've gone up 200%. And so I have, studio apartments in Palermo, Hollywood, where I was paying, say, $100 a month last year. And now I'm paying like $400 a month. And so on the piaces, you don't have any maintenance. You don't have any monthly maintenance fee. It's kind of like owning your own house.
That's super interesting. And any other details between PH, which is propiedad horizontal? So for people that aren't familiar, it's a curious thing. You walk past the street and it looks like
Yes,
there's a little house, but it extends backwards or horizontally. So it's not necessarily
exactly.
a high rise. It's quite deceptive. People might think, oh, hang on a
It
minute.
is. You would never know, right? Some of those
Absolutely.
you share that common entryway. You walk in down a hallway, and you have, sometimes on one side, sometimes on two sides. Houses are typically low, no more than say 2 floors, sometimes 3 floors. But the good sides, no HOA fees. The bad sides can be, if there's some catastrophic event like a plumbing pipe break or something like that, it's only as good as your neighbors that you share with that they're going to have the money to cover those common costs and all agree that, hey, we have to fix this.
Mm.
We typically don't see problems, but we have before. Where a plumbing might break or electrical line or gas line, and they have to hire someone to fix it, and half the people don't have the money. And so a lot of times you have a scenario where you're having to front the money for all this, and they're paying you back on a payment plan over the
I see.
next year.
I
And
see.
so that's the downside. Another downside could be if you have this crazy neighbor that has a barking dog, or is always yelling or playing music loud. There's no administration for that property, and so there's not really anything you can do. You're kind of stuck in that situation. Whereas in a building, they have rules. They usually have noise ordinances and hours where quiet hours and things like that.
Okay. And they often have things like concierges and other amenities. and they're shared throughout the entire apartment complex, right? So that
Yes.
would be another difference between an apartment versus a piace or a house. What are the other differences in terms of an ongoing monthly maintenance cost, let's say?
Yeah, so for a similar one, we have something called ABL. It covers the garbage pickup on the streets, those big trash cans you see in each block, the lights on the street cleaning. Every property in Buenos Aires is you have an ABL bill, whether you have a piace, an apartment, or a house. It's not that much, to give you an idea, like on a one bedroom apartment in Palermo, Hollywood, I think I pay like $400 a year. They bill you in January, and it's you can either pay it once, you can spread out the payments over 5 payments, but it's not that much. Now there's talk that they're going to increase that ABL, but I think even if they doubled it, it's not that much. It's not that expensive of a tax. On both of them, you typically have a property tax on that to make it easier. Say 1% per year of the value, and when I say the value, it's whatever price is on the title deed. So if you have $100,000 property, it's going to be $1,000 a year. However, when you buy a property, many owners, they'll say, "I won't sell you the property unless you use a fake lower price." And
Yes.
so it's an interesting experience buying in Buenos Aires, because probably 70% of the time that you buy, you're going to have an owner that says that. You're going to have an owner, if you're buying $100,000 property, they say, "We won't sell it unless we record that you're only paying."
Sandbag the official sale
Yeah,
and then top
exactly.
it up with cash. Yeah.
That's it. That's it. And so, as a foreigner, it's important to understand all these nuances in the market. We typically recommend to do everything as clean as possible, and use real amounts, because you're not saving that much money. And also, you have the capital gains tax to worry about. There's a 15% capital gains tax in Argentina when you go to sell. The locals never pay it because, of course, they're always,
Yeah.
they're always on paper making it look like they never made any money. But most of our investors, they have the capital gains tax to worry about in Argentina as well as their home countries. A lot of our clients are Americans, and we have capital gains tax on any investments that we make in anywhere in the world. And so if you use a much lower price and you're not able to do the same thing when you sell it, your capital gain is going to look much higher than it actually is.
All these nuances, guys. So make sure you engage the services of Michael and the team, so you don't get left with any nasty surprises.
Yeah.
Mortgages coming into the market, not really available for foreigners, as I understand, but perhaps that
No,
will
they're not.
change.
Yeah, they're not at all. You have to have locally based income and be a resident. You have to have a DNI there and be paying taxes for at least a year. And so the banks are doling them out very, very quickly. So if you have residency there and you're paying taxes on that income, I phrase it like that because a lot of expats, they do get residency in Argentina, but they don't declare any of their foreign based income. And so that would be important. It's not just enough to have a DNI. It would be to have a DNI and show that you're paying the ARCA now is the Internal Revenue Service here, that you're paying income on that. So the banks would want to see locally sourced income or locally declared income.
Yeah, and fair enough. And yields for, let's say, apartments versus houses, PHs, is there much of a difference between the two if you're looking to rent to locals versus short to medium stay foreigners?
Yeah,
How's the
so
market
the
shaping up?
long-term rentals, it's been interesting watching it because over the last year, they had restrictions and they had all of these laws where they restricted long-term rentals. So last year, before President Milei started, there was almost zero rentals on the long-term market in Buenos Aires. I mean, think about that: 13 million people in the provincia of Buenos Aires, and there was almost no rentals because they had these crazy laws where you couldn't increase the prices, and you know you had to do them in pesos, and so no people just said, you know what, I'd rather leave them empty and or they do short term, they converted them into Airbnbs. And the yields weren't that great then, but now they have that, Malay repealed the law. There's a lot of demand, and locals are making about 4.5%, 5% on the long-term market. On the short term, we have clients, believe it or not, still making insanely high ROI. I have a client that we built a house for. We built a house near Palermo, Soho, 20 years ago. And, we were laughing because he just hired us to buy another one. But we bought that house for $220,000. He knocked it down. He built up a whole new one for, I think, $300,000. And he recently just did an extension. He added on a room. I think he spent another $250,000. So all in, he only has maybe $750,000, $800,000 on that house. And just this year, or the full year, he had net income for about $180,000. So think of that, and I'll show you the Airbnb. It has a pool on the roof, 4 bedrooms. So he's making like 20% ROI on that. We have other clients that have Piace, same thing, with 4 bedrooms. Right now, the ones that are making the highest ROI are going to be, places with 3 or 4 bedrooms. And the reason for that is on Airbnb, about 80% of all the Airbnbs on the market, they're only studio or 1 bedroom. So there's a lot of competition, and there's not that many 3-bedroom and 4-bedroom. So the ones that you have no competition. You can kind of charge what you want. My client that has the house, I think he's charging between $800, $900 a night. The one that has a Piace, he has 4 bedrooms, and we gutted that also. And he's charging about $700 or $800. And go back to what I said before of who our target competition was. It wasn't the cheap, the cheap hotels or the hostel or backpackers. It was the 5-star hotels. If you look now at what a 5-star hotel charges, they're all $800, $900, $1,000 for a suite. And so those houses like that, or those bigger properties, all of a sudden become a pretty good deal, right? Even at $1,000 a night, you have a pool on the roof, you have 4 bedrooms. It sounds like a lot, but it's not compared to those hotels. It's a different experience, a rental versus a hotel, obviously. But we want to give so much value and so much reason why people should do that they typically do. And so the ROI on a property can range from, say, like 8%. The typical short-term rental probably net's probably about 8%, 7-8% on the low end. On the high end, like these properties I'm talking about, some of them are making 15, even 20% ROI, like net income. The ones that the houses don't
net of fees as well, like net of management.
That's net of fees. So most property managers in Buenos Aires, they're probably going to charge, say, 20%, as high as 25%. We for our clients, we charge 25%, but we're typically able to get so much more because when we furnish it, we go all out. Most foreigners, they're not, and all locals, nobody spends any money on furnishing it. They're getting the cheapest, flimsiest mattress. When we furnish, we figured something out really interesting. There's always a segment of the market that's willing to pay more per night for a luxurious mattress, right? Like 500
exactly. And when it
500
says a double
megabyte
bed,
yes.
A double bed is an actual double bed, not 2 single beds put together.
Exactly.
That's something that kills me every time I go there.
It is, right? In the local market, they always do that. It's hard to find a property with a true king great bed, right? Like a king size, not 2 twins pushed together. And so what we did 22 years ago is I was buying the same mattresses that are in the Four Seasons presidential suites, right? These are like $2,000 mattresses, where locals, they're never going to make that expense, but that's what we do in our properties. We get the fastest internet speeds. Like right now in my properties, I'm getting 1 gigabyte internet speeds. It might be double the monthly price, but most people that are coming down, they have to be connected, or a lot of digital nomads, And so we just do those kind of things. In some properties, I even have two companies. I'm paying for two services in case one goes down. You have constant coverage and things like that. High-end mattresses, good. Like it annoys me. You'll go to a lot of these rentals in Airbnb, even ones that look nice, and they'll be like an old TV. Like this old non-smart TV that you can't connect. And so, that's the differentiator for anyone wanting to do short-term rentals in Buenos Aires is, spend more and go high end, get the good cable package, the fastest internet. And typically you're going to be able to have higher occupancy rates. Once someone stays in our property, they always come back because the alternative is slow, glitchy internet.
Yes.
Mattress hard as a rock, or like you're saying, you have a couple and they're sleeping and the beds are going apart. And so the ROI is quite good on a high end, highly nice furnished property. They're quite good.
Okay. But you can't be cheap about it.
You can't be cheap, and we spend a lot of money. Like I bought a 2-bedroom right now. I'm spending $30,000 fitting it out. I mean, that's a lot of money to furnish a 2-bedroom apartment, but we're putting in 60-inch QLED TVs in each room, fastest internet, $2,000, so even in just mattresses, I've spent like $6,000. I spent $2,000 on each mattress, and I have a sofa bed. That sofa bed is probably more comfortable than most local mattresses, right? That was $2,000. And so it's worth it. Typically, I have many properties in Mexico, and I do the same thing. It's worth it. We always get people coming back because there's no competition really.
Yeah, indeed. Another differentiating factor that I want to get your take on. If anyone's ever been to Buenos Aires in the summertime, it gets pretty hot and humid. You're going to
Yeah,
want to have your air conditioner. Now, the air conditioning around the city, it's a little retro. It's
yeah,
the
yeah,
old
yeah,
unit on the outside of the building, and it does drip on the sidewalk, so it's
yeah.
not generally the most comfortable. How do you solve that particular problem in terms of making it as clement as possible for the
Yeah,
guests?
so what we do in ours, as you mentioned, most of the apartments have split units with the unit outside, and each room has their own air conditioners. What we do is we have the plumbing built into the wall, so that condensation is going right through the drain line. So there's no mess. A lot of these apartments you rent, and you see this bottle outside on the balcony, right? Where if you don't empty that, water is going to go all over the balcony, and so we just kind of believe in doing things right and not having to deal with that mess. Some people, they think they're saving money, right? Not doing it, and then there'll be a leak or a flooding of their property, and it creates more work. And so there's if you're going to do it, I think you should do it right and set it up
Absolutely.
the right way, and prevent problems. Something nice is a lot of the locals, because of this long-term change in the market with Malay getting rid of these laws, a lot of the people that were in long-term and that went to Airbnb, they're now all going back to long-term. With Malay, they've gotten rid of a lot of these subsidies, so locals went from not paying anything for electricity and gas to now all of a sudden having to worry about that. And so a lot of people have now left the Airbnb market, and they're going back to long-term rentals. And so that's great for the Airbnb rentals that are staying in it.
Yeah, absolutely. And in terms of tourism flows, you have your finger on the pulse. A lot of people I see complaining on X about the prices, just
Yeah.
because they were used to artificially low prices, in my opinion.
Yes, they were. I mean, the prices last year, just to give you an idea. I mean, I don't remember them being that cheap even after the Corralito. I mean, I was in Buenos Aires during some cheap times, but they were never as low as last year. And so it's not good in Argentina to have one extreme or another. You have
Mm,
to have kind of an equilibrium taking place. What happened? A lot of the people complaining, I a lot of them are say digital nomads or expats that are in Argentina for all the wrong reasons, I think. or I say, I mean, for the right reasons for them, where they don't care really what happens locally as long as they have a cheap steak. And I think
Yeah,
I think that's wrong.
I agree.
What's happened right now is the costs have gone up quite a bit compared to last year. And I think things need to equal out. It is expensive compared to last year, but even not compared to last year. You know, Argentina traditionally it's not been this great cheap place. You know, overall, if you look over the years, it's a bargain, but not like last year. I
Yeah,
think I
that
think
was truly an outlier that year. It was
yeah. So you go
undeserved.
all the time. You can remember how cheap it was. But I think right now the peso is overvalued. You know, the peso is the government. They do a lot of intervention in the market, you know, to prop up that peso. And I think the peso is overvalued right now. I think, you know, I think eventually it'll find a fair footing once it's trading completely, you know, floating free. The IMF, it looks like they're probably gonna give 10 to 15 billion dollars in the next couple of months. And one of the conditions they'll say is, look, you got to stop messing around with the exchange rate. You just got to let it float freely. What's probably going to happen is the blue dollar is going to go up, and so there is going to be some inflation. But I think if you have dollars, I think the costs are going to, you know, they're going to come down from what we're paying right now.
Yeah, and I think an interesting point, if you've got property there, how does it work in terms of renting out still? If you're on long term, I presume you still have to rent it in pesos because there'll be
No,
taxes
you
on
can
that.
now you can rent it in whatever you want. You can rent
Interesting.
it in dollars. You can do whatever you want. And surprisingly, to give you kind of maybe how great Malay is doing, it used to be nobody wanted to do in pesos.
Yeah.
And now, you know, probably 30% of the people, not foreigners, but locals, they're saying, you know what, let's do it in pesos. And Argentina they have an inflation guide where they'll say, we'll do it in pesos, but the inflation, it's going to be inflation based,
Right.
right? Just like the mortgages, or if you buy a poso or a new construction,
There's an
it's
index for that.
it's indexed,
Yeah.
right? And so,
Cool.
you know, a lot of locals are saying, I don't want to do it in dollars. I'd rather do it in the peso, and we'll
Mm,
adjust with inflation. But a lot of them do in dollars. Like I rented an apartment I have in Recoleta. This is one of my first properties I bought, you know, 2002, I think. I paid $73,000, and I just rented out. You know, it's coming off of a 1 year lease, but an American sent me $18,000 up front. You know, because the foreigners, and if you don't have residency there and you don't own property, you typically have to have a guarantor,
mm.
someone that owns property that will co-sign for you, because the squatter rights are laws there are crazy.
Yes.
If you rent to someone and they stop paying, you can't get them out. And so typically they'll ask you to have someone co-sign for you. To get around that, you know, you can pay a year up front. You can just pay the whole year up front. And, you know, that's always appealing for people that own properties, because you can take that money and invest it somewhere else.
Yep, absolutely. It's interesting. People don't realize in the city of Buenos Aires, even locals have to get another guarantor oftentimes to be
Yes.
able to
Yeah.
do long-term rentals.
It's crazy. You know, at one time I owned 13 properties in Buenos Aires myself. And when I was leasing my office space, they don't let you use your own properties. Like you can't use your own property to co-sign. You have to get someone else
Mm,
to pledge one of their properties. And so it's this uncomfortable dynamic when you rent long term, either an office or residential. You have to find someone that will co-sign for you. The locals, there's an insurance you can get that you can buy, but you have to be a local and you have to have a job. That you can buy a policy that they'll be the guarantor. But as foreigners or expats, you can't buy a policy like that. And so your only alternative is typically paying 6 to 12 months in advance for that lease.
it's a truly unique dynamic.
It is. It's a very unique country. You know, I've been
Mm.
all over the world, probably 85 countries, 600 cities, and I've never seen the dynamics of what goes on in Argentina. You know, it's this. It's chaotic. I always say, you know, I love the country. Two of my kids were born there.
Oh,
I was married there. My kids were born there. I've had permanent residency there for 22 years. I love it, but I'll be the first to say it's a mess. I mean, even right now with Malay, there's a lot of things that need to be figured out. You talk to any business owner, and they'll laugh. You'll laugh about lawsuits with employees. I had dinner with Botad Mara last year, and we were just laughing, comparing stories. He had owned a company. You just laugh at some of the chaotic things that you have to deal with as a business owner in Buenos Aires. It's truly unbelievable,
it
and
is.
the government has to fix those kind of things, those employment laws, the labor laws, the tax laws. There's a lot of work to be done.
It's not for the novices, guys, and that's why Michael and the team are here to help you out to smooth the experience for you. We're coming up on the 10-minute mark, and you've got a lot of interesting things going on, not necessarily related to Argentina. I'd like to hand you the floor. Tell me about a few of your projects and dreams that you're constructing, pun intended, because it's super
Yeah,
interesting.
so it's always we've for 22 years, I've made other people's dreams come true. Meaning, people that have wanted to own a property somewhere else in a foreign country, or build a house, or even hedge funds have hired us to build hotels for them. So I financed a lot of buildings in Buenos Aires. We've probably taken in hundreds of millions of dollars in investments, but I always had the dream, I want to build my own building. And so last year I started the process of looking for land, planning with some developers. I have a good developer partner I've been buying with 22 years, of kind of starting the process to do my own skyscraper, to do my own tower, where we'll work with our existing investors. Where the same thing we've been doing, except people would buy a property, 1, 2, 3 bedroom property in the building. They would own it. They would have their own title deed, but then do like an apartment hotel, like a high-end boutique hotel, kind of like a Ritz-Carlton residence ownerships, where we'll manage the whole building. And so, yeah, I've been going through that process. It's just been very, very difficult finding land, and also waiting for things to stabilize a little bit. But that's something that's kind of in the works. Is planning that. We have about 49 people on the waiting list that want to buy a unit, but we're not rushing it. We got to find the land, and finding land is not that easy right now.
And what's the size of this thing going to be? So it's going to be for
I
residential
want to do
apartments,
I
or is
want
it
to
going to
do
be?
at least I want to do at least 100 units. I've had a couple lots of land where they're smaller, but I would want to do it at scale. And I would say the smallest apartment, a 1 bedroom, maybe like 500 square foot, to a 3 bedroom apartment, as much as say 2,000 square feet.
I
And
see.
so just finding a footprint of a land to be able to do something like that, it's been challenging. But we'll keep trying.
Well, that'll be super interesting. Super interesting to manage the like construction costs and local fluctuations with the local
And
economy.
that's the challenge, because we always recommend to our buyers, never buy in inflation based prices, because you don't know what you're gonna end up paying. And the joke is always, in that kind of scenario, you buy one but you pay for two, right? And so some locals, if you look on Twitter, there's people that have bought like that, and they've had a challenging time, because inflation earlier this year was going up, say 9-10% per month, and the value of the blue dollar has gone down. In July it was 1,500 pesos to one. Now it's like 1,100 to one, and so they're getting hit at both ends there, where you're having to pay higher prices. What I want to do is just have it locked in dollars, but to do that is tough, because in an inflationary environment like Argentina has, it's challenging. It's challenging, to say the least, to go in a format like that, where you're only pricing in dollars, and if things go up 100%, you're not going to make any money on that. And so you have to have the right set of circumstances. But it's an interesting country, and so hopefully things stabilize. Right now the inflation has gone down tremendously, And I think probably mid 2025, it's going to be a good scenario where we're not in the type of 100%, 200% yearly inflation like we have right now, and it'll be much easier to deal with. Our partner on that is a big developer that's been around in Buenos Aires for 45 years, and we've financed a lot of their buildings, so this will be a good opportunity kind of to do my own thing. Most of the construction in Buenos Aires is not that great. If you probably, it sounds like you there all the time. And so what I'm thinking about doing is going very, very high end, very, very good materials, kind of the total toilets, like they have in high end hotels, and just kind of going five star build out.
Well, it's a ambitious maverick project, but if anyone can do it in the chaotic BA, you are the man, sir. Thank you very much for joining me. All of your details will be in the description, of course, but tell people where they can find you and how they should approach get in touch with you and the team.
Yeah, so you can contact us on our website, buysellba.com. Also on X, we post daily on everything that's going on in Argentina, anything that's going on in the real estate market. And from our website, you can schedule a consultation. We have a very, very easy process where, every day we're getting dozens of emails a day and phone calls of people that want to think it'll be neat to talk about real estate. We're just not able to do that. And so we have initial consultation where you pay $300, you get 90 minutes. We'll go completely through the process from start to finish. We'll give you contacts if you want to buy yourself. You don't have to hire us. We'll give you all the banking, accounting, legal, escribano contacts, and you can do it yourself if you want. But during that 90 minutes, we'll tell you everything that you need to know on buying in Buenos Aires. And if you end up retaining us, we'll rebate that $300 back to you. So it's not like you're paying it twice. So
It's a great offer,
it helps us kind of protect against time wasters and people that aren't that serious in buying.
No, it's a great offer, guys. I encourage you to get in touch with Michael and the team. Links in the description. Thank you very much for tuning in to another episode of the ROI channel. I look forward to catching up with you in another episode shortly. Take care, guys.